Today we're going on a journey with one of my favorite houseplants. It is the Pilea Chocolate, also known as the Pilea spruceana. I also like to call this plant the Pilea Dark Chocolate because of how dark the foliage is. It is actually one of my favorite houseplants in my collection. It's quite unusual and very underrated. This is one of my darkest foliage plants that I have. I love it. This is kind of why this plant is my favorite. I love the textured leaves and the kind of flowers that it gives off during fall is so unusual and spooky. Very, very gothic type plant. This plant is actually a fantastic choice for beginners because it comes from the Pilea family, which means it's also known as the friendship plant because it is so easy to propagate and share with others. I'm going to share my journey with it, how I've cared for it, and my experience so far. This plant is native to Central and South America from my research that I looked up, and it is quite a compact grower. It doesn't really get too bushy. I actually cannot let it get too bushy because of the Midwest conditions. We'll talk about that a little later. I've had this plant for, I would say, 6 to 7 years, and yes, the same exact plant, but it's been pruned and propagated and started over, so technically the same exact plant. I love to share this plant with other people, by the way, because of how easy it is to propagate. When I was pulling this plant out of the cabinet, well, not the grow cabinet, but my cabinets right here, it broke off some offshoots, and I'm gonna propagate these. All I have to do to propagate these, I can just stick it back in the pot, or I'm gonna put it in water. I've been using these styrofoam things to get my plants to float in the water, so that way the leaves don't get wet. And I'm gonna water propagate just because I'm gonna make other plants from this. So usually what I do with those, I just stick it in water, put it in there, and it's gonna grow some roots within like 2 weeks, and then I can just pot it up. I can just stick it back in the pot and it would grow roots, and then it would grow from there. I've done that before. That's kind of how you get a bushier plant from it, but the plant will just automatically have offshoots and grow pups as well. That's one of the great things about this plant, is just how easy it is to propagate. I actually have a few potted up already because I am gonna be giving these to some other people. And this came from this tiny plant right here. So how does this plant compare to my other plants in my collection? I have a lot of Hoyas, I have a lot of begonias, I have a lot of alocasias as well. So and then philodendrons. But comparing it to all the other plants in my collection, I want to say how easy it is. Light color changes the leaves of this plant. Lower light will give it a more green color, and higher light gives it its dark foliage. These are getting way more light than this plant, and you see how dark the foliage is like this. To comparing the color, yeah, that's what I mean about light. If you put this plant in a dark corner of your house, the leaves will change to a little greener. I would say it would get a little leggy and the foliage will get smaller, versus giving the plant some light. Like a little bit more light would be more helpful for it if you want to keep the dark color. So it can tolerate lower light. I have grown this in lower light and I was just not happy with what it was looking like. Just started giving it more light and it just did a lot better. And it will flower. I don't know if I have any pictures of when the plant has flowered. I will look for some B-roll for that. But it is quite a dainty plant. Now, I've grown it in soil for many years, and this is the first year I'm trying leca, and I don't know how I feel about it at all, because I feel soil growing for this plant gives it a little bit bushier look. I forget when I transferred this plant to leca. I transferred it, I want to say, a few months ago, And by that time, I would have had way more foliage than this. I don't know. I'm not really liking growing leca since I've been trying it. There are roots already coming out from the bottom of the pot. I will need to repot. So I'm gonna probably prune it back maybe later on in summer to grow it in soil, and it'll get bushy really quickly. There was one year that I had this plant and it was the best looking it could look, and I know exactly what I did that year. I pruned it once spring came and grew it back in soil, and I allowed it to just flourish and it grew really bushy. But once winter came, it started declining just because of how cold it is. But I think one of the things about this plant is it doesn't like to be dry. Don't let it dry out, because the minute you start letting this plant, or basically any plant, dry out, you're going to start losing a lot of leaves. The leaves will get really crispy at the bottom, and then it'll look like it's leggy, and you'll lose a lot of that bushiness and compactness. It's not gonna look good. So that's kind of why I chose to grow it in leca this year, because of the moisture. But I'm finding it's just not, I'm just not good with leca. I was kind of expecting like really bigger leaves growing in leca, and I haven't had that since I've been growing it in leca. And when I grew it in soil, I did have a little bit darker, bushier, lush, more leaves. So we're going to be transferring this back into soil. So watering. This plant does not like to dry out. It does not want to sit in soggy, wet feet. It does not like to sit in water. So when I would top water, I've left the water to soak up. If you do that, you have to remember to empty the saucer, or you can actually have a little bit more height in the plant pot that is in, to where the plant still has a little water at the bottom, but it's not soaking up. I have grown this in self-watering pots, and I've grown it without. I've had more luck growing it not in a self-watering pot, and I think it's just, it needs to be moist, but it doesn't want to be soggy at all. If you overwater this plant, it is going to get root rot really quickly, and it will stink. You can tell really fast when this plant needs water. It behaves a lot like a begonia, actually exactly like a begonia. So even like the medium I put it in, if I put it in soil medium, I would use my begonia mix that I do, which is just potting mix and a little tiny bit of orchid bark and perlite. So when I transfer this over to soil, I'm going to be doing that mix with it, and it's gonna love it. It grows very quickly, very quickly. These were tiny cuttings that I had, like the cuttings that you just saw earlier, and they're pretty big now. I think I did these a couple months ago. The best growing season for it is summer for me in my whole house conditions, and I'm sure it's because of the warmth in the room. It will flower for me in fall, and those flowers are really beautiful. It definitely gives the spooky vibes. I grow this plant out of the IKEA cabinet, but if I were to put it in the IKEA cabinet to grow, it will do really well. But I can't have every plant in my IKEA cabinet, so I grow it outside of the cabinet. Sometimes, maybe if I want to give the plant like a nice spa day, I would shove it in the cabinet for like a week and get it to be like really lush again and take it out. I did try growing this in the cabinet last year, but I had to quickly move it out because it was just getting too big for the cabinet. Maybe I just need to get more cabinets. I will say last year in winter was a very difficult winter for me, and I lost a lot of my plants. So this year I'm preparing way more better for winter because of how cold this room gets. So I'm preparing with this plant for winter. If you grow this plant in Florida, it would do amazing. Amazing. It'll probably even get bigger and look way more healthier because of the heat. when it comes down to heat and sunshine, it is a good thing for plants. Cold temperatures with sunshine doesn't really always do well with plants, but heat and light, amazing. Which is why summer is the best growing season for this plant. Say I've not seen this in any big box store here at all. But then again, my big box store doesn't have a lot of plants. But if you're looking for like a peace lily or golden pothos, it's all over. But other uncommon plants are not to be found. I have not seen this anywhere. Only in one shop in Michigan have I seen this plant. And that's kind of where I bought it from. And I am glad I did because I love it. I would love to grow this plant to its full potential. That is a thought that I would like to take on next year because I want to see how big the leaves can get. And it would mean that I don't prune it back. So we'll see how that goes. You don't really get yellowing leaves with this plant. You get a lot of dried leaves like this, so you don't really get yellowing leaves. I think it can grow from a leaf cutting, but I've not tried that. I don't need to try that because of how well it does with stem cutting. I've not had pest on this plant since I've had it. It's kind of just a lot of my begonias. I've not seen pest on any of my begonias and these. But I've seen pests on my alocasias, philodendrons, and some of my Hoyas. I'm sure mealybugs would actually love this plant because of how juicy the stem is. I've just not had pests on this plant. The plant would probably do extra special in the east window because of how that morning light comes in. I might actually move it to the east window. I actually have it growing in here. It's right underneath a grow light. I had it growing in my east window spot before, and I might just put it back there just because I've cleaned up that area and there's no plants on the table. And this would just be a really pretty centerpiece for it. So because of just how compact it is, so I might just do that. Common problems with this plant, I will say, is you have to water on time. Don't overwater, don't underwater. Underwatering will cause the bottom leaves to just fall off and then it just doesn't look good anymore. I like it when it's like nice and bushy and everywhere there's like a foliage area, not anything where there's like a bald area. I don't like that very much. So why I love this plant is because it is easy. Although it didn't start off that way, I stuck it out with this plant and I didn't get rid of it. So there are plants that I have in my collection that I kind of fall out of love with and I get rid of it. This one, for some reason, I just can't do it. And I know it's because of the dark foliage. So I've stuck it out with this plant. So sometimes I would say it is a good thing to stick it out with a plant. When it's not going well, you kind of stick around for the worst of times and get to know it. And then once you get to know it, you kind of fall back in love with it or you don't. And then when you don't, you know you can either get rid of it. I want to see how I do with it during winter again because I just have some things I'm going to try with it to see how we're going to be together during winter. If you enjoy something more uncommon, not rare, but uncommon, I would say get this plant because of just how easy it is. It's not like the Pilea peperomioides. It's very different from that plant. Where does this plant rank in my favorite? I would put this in the top 10 of my ultimate favorite plants in my whole collection. I would say it would probably be number 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. And I have like over 100 plants. I mean, I'm sure I have like more than that, but I've just decided not to count my plants. It's like, who would not enjoy growing this plant? People that don't like begonias because of how thirsty it can get. I would say that would be the only thing that's not enjoyable about this plant. But again, once you get to know it, you know you take the watering can straight to these plants because they're the more thirsty one. What is your most underrated plants in your houseplant collection that deserves some attention? This plant definitely did deserve some attention from me today because I've had it the longest and I have never shared a care video for it. So that is mine, and hopefully I've given you enough information to want to grow this plant. And if you want cuttings of this plant, let me know, because I'm happy to send it to you if you cover shipping cost. I won't be able to give like a lot of cuttings to people, but if you're interested in cuttings of this plant and you're in the US and want to pay for shipping, let me know. I'd be happy to send you some. Thanks so much for hanging out and chatting with me about the Pilea dark chocolate, one of my most unusual and favorite plants in my collection. Enjoy the rest of your day, and always remember you are loved. All right, I don't know how this video went, but I guess editing is gonna be magic.